Call the meeting to order. October 13, a special joint meeting of the Salem City Council and the Beverly City Council being held remotely on Wednesday, October 13, 2021 at 6:30 p.m. for the purpose of discussion and a presentation of the Resilient Together plan. Notice of this meeting was posted on October 7th, 2021 at 2:38 p.m. From the Salem City Council, absent are Councilors Hapworth, Flynn, and Sargent. Council President Medore presiding, as well as Beverly Council Vice President Rand presiding, and Councilor Rand, please introduce the City Council in Beverly.
Thank you, President Medore, and thank you for having us. I love that this project happened as a regional effort, and I love partnering with Salem, so it's a pleasure to be here with you. Ms. Kent, did you already call the roll? Would you please call the roll? Thank you.
Haynes? Copeland?
Here.
Feldman?
Here.
Flaherty? Flowers?
Here.
Hausman? Rotundo?
Here.
Wamsi? And Rand.
And I am here. Thank you.
Thank you. And at this moment, I'm requesting everyone please rise to recite the Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilors. I don't see Councilor Hausman, so I'm going to go to Councilor Rotundo and Councilor Morcillo.
I pledge allegiance
I pledge allegiance to the
to the
flag
flag of the United States of
United
America,
States of America, and to the
and to the
republic
republic
for which it stands, one
nation,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible, with liberty
liberty, and justice
for all.
for all.
Thank you. Tonight, also in attendance from Salem staff, we have Jenna Ide, and we also have Mayor Driscoll joining us. And from Beverly staff, we have Rena Keefe and Darlene Nguyen from the planning department. I think that's everybody, right? Did I miss anyone? Okay. Great. Now with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mayor Driscoll to offer some opening remarks.
Thank you, Councilor Medore. And thanks to everyone who's on the call. I think this is actually a pretty historic meeting for us. It's not often that Salem and Beverly City Councils come together. I honestly can't remember any time that we've had joint meetings to discuss items of import, notwithstanding the fact that we are all living right next door to each other and collaborate all the time. But I just can't think of a better reason to come together officially in this joint capacity than our efforts together to collaborate on tackling climate change. I know Mayor Cahill isn't here, but I do want to give him his due. Beverly was starting out on a climate action plan and received some funding for the initiative. And I called him and I said, we should really do this together. We both share a coastline. We have similar attributes, hospitals, colleges, and frankly, we're all in each other's backyards all the time. You work one place, you eat someplace else, you live someplace else. I think on the North Shore, we treat each other as colleagues and collaborators, not competitors. And it really is evident in this plan and this work. I also want to thank the city clerks and the city council presidents for putting this together. It isn't easy to figure out schedules, and I know we were trying to do it sooner. So thanks for sticking with it, because I really do think we're so proud of the work underway in this Resilient Together plan, which happened primarily during COVID. Normally we have joint meetings and have street teams and have all these outreach efforts. A lot of that had to be accommodated, like so many other things, virtually. And just the staff, the combined staff. I know Beverly recognizes the value and contributions of their planning staff. And I know Salem recognizes the value and contributions of Jenna, capital planning, and our new resilient and sustainability division. But the staff really pulled out their A game to ensure that even though we were during COVID, even though we had obstacles to communicate, we ended up with a plan that had a lot of community input. and really just lays out what I think is a blueprint for how our communities can work together. And we were hoping that this meeting, I think, could really ensure that we were building awareness and growing advocacy for a climate change agenda, and that we could dual track it. It's a lot easier to jump into the deep end of the pool, right, when you're doing it with somebody else. And we've got a lot of work ahead of us. Both cities, I think, have really been leaders in trying to be more energy efficient, trying to understand how we could build more resiliently. And even with that, we know we're behind the 8 ball when it comes to climate change, and there's a lot of work to do. We're excited to have this action plan, and we really are treating it as an action plan. How are we going to operationalize these? How are we going to budget for these items? What are we thinking about both policies and projects that are tied to Resilient Together? And I'm just grateful for our collective willingness to sort of roll up our sleeves and tackle this together. Just wanted to say thank you, and to all the work that's been done, and also all the work that is yet to happen. Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor. Jenna, did you want to offer a few remarks before I turn it over to Arena?
Sure, and I just want to thank the mayor and Mayor Cahill and the both city councils for all their support, and of course the citizens of Beverly and Salem and businesses. It really was even though it was COVID, we had quite a bit of community outreach. Esmeralda, who sort of did quite a bit of the work here on the Salem side, unfortunately had a family emergency, so she couldn't make it tonight. But I do want to recognize we had quite a bit of the engineering staff, Michaela on recycling, Deb on the stormwater and water issues, planning, Dave Kaczarski, in traffic planning, Tom Devine, Tom Daniel, Amanda. So many players and many different departments, even, fire and police contributed to this. So I do want to recognize that and, thank everyone for their effort. And I really thank, Rena here is like, she kept it together. So pulling it forward, and all the staff in Beverly, Emily and Beth, and all the others. So, but I did want to mention that, I will be, unfortunately, I can't stay the whole evening, so I will be on here. If you have any questions that, we can't answer for Salem, I will circle back and make sure to, answer those and get those back to you. There may be also questions for other staff. It's important, I think, to remember as we go through this, that this is not, the Resilient Together staff who are going to implement or who did this plan. It was really the whole community. And so things around mobility, that's really a lot of the traffic and parking people and bicycle committees. Things around natural resources relate a lot to Conservation Commission and preservation of land, nonprofits preservation of land, as well as city, and also sustainable agriculture, which, is sort of a variety of groups in both cities working on that. So I think it's really, we're really kind of coordinating the efforts of so many others and in tracking. And I think it's important what you'll really see tonight is this sort of where we are now and where are we going. And we really pushed hard to set as high goals as we could to try to even beat the state's goals. And so where we're going, it's a community effort. So this is really great that we got these two city councils together, because we're really hoping that it doesn't end here. This is really the beginning, and this is an ongoing conversation, changing, tracking successes, challenges as we move forward. So, and sustainability really does touch everything. People think about energy, but it really touches so many other things. And I think Irina will talk through all those different areas. And I just a big shout out to Irina thank you for taking the ball tonight. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Jenna. And with that, I'll turn it over to Arena.
Jenna, you say it's not the implementation team. It better not be with just us tonight. Hello, everybody. My name is Arena Keefe, the Sustainability Director with the City of Beverly. I'm in the Mayor's office. And to all the Salem councilors who I haven't met yet, it's nice to meet and connect with you. Mayor Driscoll, Jen, I really appreciate your introductory comments. As everyone mentioned, this is really just intended to be kind of a high-level glimpse at what this plan contains. And I encourage you, if you haven't yet, to take a look through the actual document and all the resources that I'll walk you through in a minute. So as everyone had mentioned before, I'm really serving as the kind of ambassador of this large team that contributed to the Climate Action Resilience Plan. So in Beverly, in addition to all the names and people that Jenna had shouted out to, we have Emily Hutchings, our Assistant Director of Planning, who's unable to make it today. And I do see Darlene, our Director of Planning, who is on the call. So we can field some questions to her when the time comes. Both cities had a core team that was comprised of a bunch of other department heads and staff in engineering, in planning, mayor's office, et cetera. So we also have had about 40 something community leaders and stakeholders that were involved as part of our Climate Action Advisory Committee, and a group of paid ambassadors to help with some of our on-the-ground research or on-the-ground outreach during this pandemic. As this was sort of state funded through the Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Program, which enabled us to engage Kim Lundgren Associates as our primary consultant to kind of shepherd us through this planning process. So with that, I am going to share.
Can I just interrupt 1 second? I'm sorry. I just wanted to make sure that recognize that your Councilor Tim Flaherty has joined the Zoom meeting. Also, just your information.
Okay, everyone can see my screen. Great. So I'm wondering if maybe we should keep questions till the end and we can kind of triage questions, as Jenna had mentioned, to possibly answer them after tonight if I can't answer to and speak to all of the Salem projects, as well as the Salem staff and partners can. So I encourage any of the Salem folks on to jump in if you see any good examples of work that Salem has in store. As I gravitate toward using more Beverly examples here. So this presentation largely tracks alongside the plan. So I think I'm going to go through quickly all the introductory materials. I hope that all of this is familiar to you as we have, engaged you over the course of the past year on kind of the process for the plan. So starting here, I think even if they don't include words like climate mitigation, adaptation, or resilience in the project title, we do view these projects here as a sample of some of the climate actions that the two cities have taken over the past 12 years or so. And for our shared present, as Mayor Driscoll explained very eloquently earlier, our communities are similar in a lot of ways. Climate change knows no municipal boundaries, so this regional approach really made a lot of sense for our plan. And then, so if I think we had worked on this plan 10 years ago, even 5 years ago, we might have to spend more time talking about the fact that climate change is real, and we're really past that point now. This summer, you may have seen some headlines from IPCC climate report that called our trajectory a code red for humanity. And this was really a reminder that climate action is urgent, it's immediate, and it really requires all hands on deck. I know this slide and the next few will kind of show that we're already locked into some amount of change based on the historic carbon emissions that are already in our atmosphere. So all the mitigation that we are committed to now is really intended to prevent worse impacts. So one thing to note is that climate change really, it's not binary, it occurs on a spectrum. And one important tipping point and threshold that we keep in mind here is 1.5 degrees Celsius. That's just over 3 degrees of warming, and that's what we're trying to avoid taking place. So for the impacts that we can anticipate by 2050, climate change really almost boils down to more extreme weather, extreme storms that have more rainfall in shorter periods, and heat waves that I think we're going to be expecting another month of days above 90 degrees by the time 2050 comes, as well as, of course, a rising sea. This summer alone, we experienced 5 heat waves, and we had the hottest June on record and the second rainiest July. So we are already experiencing these impacts. This slide, I hope, is familiar to you as well. The cities are aligned here with the global Cities Race to Zero commitment, as well as the state goals for carbon neutrality by 2050. We're committed to reducing our greenhouse gas emissions by half by 2030. So in our vision statement here, we talk about both short-term and long-term solutions for greenhouse gas emissions reduction and for resilience to climate impacts. We do have plenty of slides here. I think you have these in your deck and you're welcome to go through them. I'm inclined to skip them because I think you have been tuned in through the process, and you can read the plan itself. And I want to make sure that we have a little bit of time to dig into the content and what we plan for the future. So our greenhouse gas emissions inventory and forecast shows you the breakdown of where the sectors where our emissions come from. And one place I just want to pause here and stop and mention that's not written in our plan is that 2 local ambassadors, Meddy Smith and from Beverly and Joey from Salem State, have actually directly advanced their careers in climate action as a result of Resilient Together. So Joey is now an intern with our consultant KLA, and Meddy, who I believe is with us on the call, was hired as a sustainability planner at KLA and will continue to work with us as the project manager for our Resilient Together website, creating social media posts for us, et cetera. So we're really excited to be able to continue working with our investors. So the plan itself, the plan has 7 focus areas. There's plenty of overlap across and among them, as you will intuitively see, and it was informed through and kind of guided by these 6 principles of emissions reduction, community resilience, economic vitality, restoration, health, and equity. So I think each focus area has about 5 high-level goals and about 10 actions. So I'm just going to highlight one from each of the cities that the cities have been taking action on. So some of these, as you'll notice, are not responsibilities that are the cities alone, cities with a capital C, but rather they're shared among our partners, our community groups, businesses, and the residents. So this first goal here is for the cities to lead by example through adoption of smart, clean, net zero technology in existing and new municipal buildings. So just wanted to highlight that in Beverly, our nearly net zero police station is open for business. It uses geothermal energy for heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. So this project can really serve as a demonstration to show that despite a high upfront cost for geothermal, it has actually the lowest life cycle cost and the lowest emissions of all of the other options that were evaluated. And now we're able to evaluate geothermal as a retrofit for other public buildings. We're also on the same police station, actively planning and working toward the installation of 400 kilowatts of solar and 3 electric vehicle charging stations for the electrifying vehicle fleet at the station. And for actions, in this first one here, we've mentioned this to the councils before. Salem and Beverly have partnered on this project to do an outreach campaign to promote participation in mass save home energy assessments and to really handhold residents in moving from an assessment to an implemented project. We're doing this through a grant that we received from MAPC that we applied for jointly, as well as through a new utility partnership with National Grid called Community Solutions. And we can pause. Is anyone interested in reading through these slides on the spot? I know there's a lot of text. I'm going to assume not and move forward, but let me know if you want me to pause. This slide is really just to show you the greater depth that you can access in the plan. We don't need to go through all of these comments here. Just know that there's more than just what meets the eye from these overarching slides. So for energy, taking a look at that second goal here, that renewable energy is accessible to all residents and businesses. In Salem, through Salem Power Choice, we know that there's an option for residents and businesses to opt up to a 100% renewable option that supports the regional renewable energy market. That's the Class 1 RECs, they're called, renewable energy credits. We'd love to see greater participation in this one. And then in Beverly, our aggregation plan is currently under state review. So in our actions for the energy focus area, you will see a lot of overlap with the buildings here. I mentioned one of the solar sites that we have at the police station. We have 6 more, and we're working toward installing about 5 megawatts in summer 2022, if all goes well with our utility. and that essentially generates as much electricity as the city consumes on our municipal side. Looking at E8 here, I know we're all kind of keeping an eye on Salem as the proposed offshore wind port operator for Commonwealth Wind. Interested to see what happens there. And the infrastructure category, big picture, this is really covering drinking water, stormwater, wastewater, and our streets and bridges that are maintained well and last a long time. This first action is not glamorous, but a long life cycle of critical infrastructure is a really important component of sustainability. And this relies on preventative maintenance system-wide and citywide. Our engineering department plans to shift toward this enterprise asset management solution that's going to track all of our asset conditions through GIS. So it's going to be a one-stop shop where work orders can be managed and operations manuals can be tied into all city assets, and all of that is in one place. And for a more accessible example, looking at I-7 here for it's our sewer pump station along Water Street at the beach is a really vulnerable piece of infrastructure that is at flood risk, essentially. And already since the feasibility study was conducted earlier this year, flood panels have been purchased to start to protect it. Mobility. So Beverly, as I mentioned, is working toward full fleet electrification. Right now, we have an informal policy in place for our staff to first research the EV option that could take the place of a gas or diesel vehicle. And we're working actively right now on a pathway toward a fully electric school bus fleet by 2030 through an innovative model that is going to be cost competitive with our current operations and our current gas and diesel fleet. Highlighting some of Salem's actions here, Salem is working toward this M1 pretty directly through the Salem Skipper. This is an on-demand shuttle that goes where residents want, whenever they want it, filling the need of that Uber service with fewer vehicles on the road. Salem also has a bike share program. And in Beverly, Darlene and I hit the streets last week trying to identify locations for new bicycle parking. Also looking at our schools and parks. We recognize that this really can't take place in a silo. You need to also be considering how to increase the safety of the streets as you navigate toward your new parking spaces. So, we will be identifying safe walking and biking routes through this as well. Natural resources, looking at goal number 2 here, that climate change impacts are a part of planning for our open space and our parks. Salem and Beverly both have had coastal resiliency projects in the past few years. Salem, the living shoreline at Collins Cove. Beverly, we just got started exploring some measures to prevent erosion at Aubert Park. And trees and urban heat. Trees are really a critical solution for urban heat. And our arborists in Beverly have planted over 200 trees this year, including about 50 new trees in heat islands. And I don't want to say it pales in comparison, but it almost pales in comparison to Salem's newly awarded 2,400 trees that are going to be planted on private and public property as part of the Greening the Gateway Cities program. So both cities have emergency communication systems through Swift 911 and through Code Red in Salem that can be used in the event of an extreme weather event. And we're also fortunate enough to have the FEMA Task Force 1 located in Beverly that serves the entire New England area. And here we know that the communications don't reach every single person. So it's something we need to be working on. Plus, public health is beyond much more than just emergencies. It's also covering things like access to local and healthy foods, like the Mack Park Food Farm and community gardens in Beverly. We want to track with the state here. The state has set a really ambitious target of 30% waste reduction by 2030 and 90% reduction by 2050. This really means and relies on expansion of our recycling and composting programs, education on how to reduce waste, and also supporting legislation that puts the onus on the producer of packaging to reduce the materials that end up in the waste stream. So one of the actions that we're moving on in Beverly that I'm really excited about is setting up a free community compost bin. It's a compost station. This already exists with great success at Mack Park. And Beverly councilors, you will hear from me by the end of this week about the station and plan for Bessie Baker Park. So that's kind of it. I know I breezed through the content really quickly, but now I just want to highlight quickly some of the resources that came out of this planning process beyond the plan. So we have our greenhouse gas emissions inventory, which covers all of the city and community-wide scope 1 and 2 emissions. And then we have, KLA has provided for us a deep dive into some of the higher impact actions that we know we need to move on quickly, like deep energy retrofits in buildings. And then a toolkit, which is here. We have one for businesses and for residents. So this goes through all of the major topics and tries to answer the question of, what can I do as a resident to reduce my carbon footprint? Don't need to go through all of that. There's a similar one made for businesses that we need to update with some of the new resources that we have, including the passage of the PEACE program. You may have seen some one-pagers on the website. Implementation blueprints for our key actions just takes a deeper dive. If there's a kind of a tricky, complex action in there, how do we take step one? How much is it going to cost? How long will that take? Who needs to be involved? We have some internal tracking matrices. And let's jump over to the dashboard. So I'm going to stop my screen share for a moment while I switch over to our website. Here. So this is the new Resilient Together website. Before, it offered opportunities to engage, and this is where the kind of landing page to comment on, provide your feedback on the plan in its draft form, and now it contains the final plan, a lot of information about the local context of our past climate work and what's coming up. Goes into details about all of the plan elements or the focus areas that we discussed. And for the action plan, this is still a work in progress. We haven't edited this too much since our plan was completed, but eventually what we're going to have here is a status bar that's updated with the progress that we're making on all of the actions that are laid out in the plan. And this is for all categories. And then our news and events page might also eventually have some blog posts incorporated into this one. We'll show you all the local events that are related to resilience, adaptation, and mitigation, which you can filter by here, as well as news articles that are handpicked by Mehdi, our new KLA sustainability planner, that share some of the regional context, as well as big kind of breaking news about how we're thinking about or how we're understanding climate risks. So I think I'm going to end there. I know this was originally laid out as a discussion between councils, so please do feel free to ask each other questions, ask me questions. And with that, maybe I will hand it over to Councilor Madore, if that makes sense.
Thank you, Irina. That was very informative. So at this time, I think Councilor Ames, did you join?
And Councilor
Okay.
Houseman as well. And Councilor Scott Houseman joined us as well at 6:50.
Great, thank you. So at this time, we can open it up for questions for Irina or city staff from both cities. I don't think Jenna's with us anymore, but I would encourage everyone, if you have comments or specific questions, please keep them reasonably short so everyone can have a chance to ask or comment.
President
Yeah,
Madore,
both sides. Yes.
yeah, would you like us to how would you like to recognize counselors? Just, I don't know the process that you have with your virtual meetings. Do you raise hands? Do you type in the chat? Do you just unmute? What would you prefer?
Raising your hand, either pressing the button or raising your hand. I can see everybody, and I'll
Okay.
recognize the hand raise.
Great, thanks.
Counselor Feldman.
Thank you. I did have one question about, I appreciated seeing that there was a business toolkit and a resident toolkit because I like seeing things like that. And I was just wondering if there are things that in this process that maybe is on the goals of actually implementing some type of legislation to guide this for either Salem or Beverly in the long term, in terms of some of those business toolkit suggestions to become more, to have teeth and have some type of enforcement, or for the building code, any of the long-term plans. Is that somewhere that is accessible in terms of like the thought process behind that? Or is there anything that Salem's maybe doing that Beverly could be doing? Or I'm just curious about that aspect of the policy behind some of the really great ideas.
As for whether the actions or the suggestions in the toolkit, whether they have teeth, no, there's a lot that we can't require yet, but what we've laid out is that things like utility incentives for energy efficiency, for example, have an obvious and kind of short, often return on investment. And that ROI, once you start looking into project ideas, makes sense from a business perspective. So they're ones that, once you become aware that they're available to you, then the choice and the decision is clear. Through our partnership with the National Grid Community Solutions Program, for example, we are going to have a small business outreach campaign in the spring, probably launching around April, to go door to door, pairing National Grid staff with our volunteers from our Clean Energy Advisory Committee, or possibly even Green Beverly, to basically schedule businesses on the spot for energy assessments, and then connect them with the tools and the resources to make the projects happen. So that's one idea there. As for what we can require, we are keeping an eye toward the net zero building code that's going to be coming from the state. So the state, as part of Governor Baker signing this into law, will create a kind of optional net zero building code that municipalities can vote to adopt. And that's something I know we're absolutely going to try to adopt as soon as it becomes possible. And in the meantime, any new development that comes on the table, and maybe Darlene can speak to this a little bit, for newer businesses are asked these questions during project review about energy efficiency, about water usage, waste, et cetera. There are some state laws that are and requirements that we know are coming in the future. Things like composting will be required at all restaurants that produce more than a half ton of food waste, but that doesn't catch everybody. So it is all of this is kind of a balance of sticks and carrots, right?
Councillor Houseman.
Yeah, hello everyone. Greetings. I have a question, not so much about the resilience plan and the presentation that we've seen tonight, which is fantastic, but more speaking to this group as policymakers in wondering what we can do to combine the leverage, if you will, or the strength of our common voices of our two cities to help push a climate resilience and clean energy future at the State House, to speak with a common voice. Sometimes in Beverly, we will pass a resolution that takes a position on a certain policy. And where climate change is concerned, it seems to me that there may be an opportunity, not simply for the Beverly City Council, but in conjunction with the city of Salem, to do something like that. Obviously, people can disagree on, legislation that might be at the state level as to what it might be better or worse and so forth. But it's sort of a general question. Be particularly interested in Mayor Driscoll's point of view on this. But all of my fellow colleagues would be interested to hear what you think about that. Thank you.
Mayor, would you like to respond?
Hey, Scott, it's great to see you, Councilor Hausman. I think those are terrific opportunities. I think the whole idea of meeting jointly was to hopefully ferment some of these ideas, whether it's joint resolutions. While I think we do a lot of that to help get things over the goal line at the state, I'm hoping we can hold hands at the local level. We're looking at a green construction ordinance. Councilor Riccardi introduced that. There's a group of stakeholders really looking at, okay, how do we put this into place? What are the steps that are going to be necessary that would change how we, think about new development in our community going forward? And there's challenges with that. We want more affordable housing. We want green initiatives. We want more efficiencies built into systems. All those things cost more. How are we incentivizing that activity? Those are areas where I think locally, if there's ways to develop local policies, ordinances that we are working together on, it makes for a more level playing field and hopefully puts into play the items and goals and objectives in the Resilient Together plan, gets it done on the street. Certainly collectively advocating at the state level, but also jointly governing with respect to policies and ordinances make a lot of sense to me.
Agreed.
Thank you, Councilor Flowers.
Thank you. So I think my question sort of ties slightly back into Councillor Feldman's question, only in the sense that I also initially was thinking about the two different toolkits and wondering, and we've sort of gone down this path, but wondering what our two cities can do to either encourage, urge, help residents and businesses to make these choices. And I was thinking about, and is it enough then if the cities are doing these things at the city level, if we can't bring our businesses and our residents along? And my guess is probably not. But my sort of where my thought went from there, and this, I'd be interested, Ms. Keefe, you and I have talked a little bit about this briefly, but Mrs. Wynn may have thoughts about this, Mayor Driscoll, but also to my fellow councilors. I know accessibility is part of the plan and making sure that renewable energy is accessible. So I'm curious in thinking together about how we can really make sure that renewable energy, but also all of these different climate change mitigation strategies and the changes that people might make are truly accessible. And I guess I'm thinking about what strategies we might have in place. Ms. Keefe, I know that when you and I had talked, it was about the fact that our former, our community solar partner that we had used actually a high bar credit check to be able to get into the program. And so that's great for many residents, but not great for all of our residents, for many others. And so it's something I've been thinking about a lot. How do we make renewable energy and access to ways that we can mitigate climate change truly accessible for all of our residents? And I think both Beverly and Salem, we have a real vested interest in making sure that all of our residents can be part of this. And I'm thinking about too, the focus group that I was on as the Resilient Together plan was coming together. There were residents on it who I've been thinking about them since the focus group, because they said, this is all really important and we know that, but even being able to care about or imagine how you might make these changes is a privileged position. And for many of us, our day-to-day lives, we know it affects us, but if you're trying to get food on the table and you're trying to make sure you have secure housing, it feels like this is sort of an aspirational thing. So I guess I'd love to think together about what plans or strategies we might have to really help address that. I think that's a really fair point. And yet we want to bring all our residents along and make sure everyone has access.
I'm going to chime in here. I think Councillor Flowers brought up some really good points. And I think the power of regional partnership at such a local level is boundless. I think we have, because of home rule, and typically I wouldn't sing the praises of home rule, but in this case, there's a lot of things that we can do by enacting local policy. And I think the plan itself lays down a really good roadmap. And we have actually precedent from state legislation that we know we should not be following. So for example, a lot of the electric car subsidies are going, I think the vast majority of those subsidies are going towards higher income people to buy Teslas. So when you talk about accessibility and and not home ownership, but accessibility of these incentives, where do we set the bar? And I think we could do this by being very diligent about tracking data about who's benefiting from these incentives and how we can continually evaluate whether we are providing this, so if we're leveling the playing field on all of these action steps that we've committed to. And so in line with that comment, I had a question for Arena, maybe Mayor as well. The joint, earlier in the presentation, there was a joint commitment to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions by 50%, if I got that right, by 2030. So that's coming up. And I wonder if that goal was set by specific, it was informed by specific metrics. Is it achievable? It sounds like a big goal, but I wonder if there are some data points that will actually get us there.
Okay, I'm going to just address that last point. It is aggressive, and it really requires us to be moving right now in significant, meaningful ways. I'm going to just share a screen that I originally flew right by here that shows this decarbonization scenario. So our major high impact areas really relate to the mostly the building sector and transportation. And oops, this is the wrong thing, sorry. Just to show you kind of the areas where we have the most to gain. It's thinking about electrifying buildings, removing fossil fuels from our roads, and removing fossil fuels from our homes and businesses and buildings. And that's where we're going to see a lot of gain over the next 10 years or so. Electrification is a tough one right now. We've been talking about deep energy retrofits and how to make them affordable. One thing that I'm hearing from our constituents is that they've tried to do the right thing, know that they don't want to replace an old gas furnace or an old oil boiler with an electric heat pump. That's something that you want to do because it's easier to change the source of the electricity from a dirty fossil fuel to a renewable source. And any infrastructure that gets installed today is going to be in place and kind of want it to be in place for the next 20, 30 years. They're systems that are meant to last. So as time passes, and there was a Boston Globe article on this a few weeks ago talking about how the million heat pumps that the state was supposed to install fell really short of their goal. So that's a major focus of ours right now. This is something that Mayor Cahill has taken up and engaged the state level, national, trying to get resources, trying to get answers from folks like Gina McCarthy to better understand how federal funding, such as through the new infrastructure bill, can be applied and used to make that choice easy and obvious for people so that it's not a financial burden to do things like switch to a heat pump in your home.
Councilor Medora, if I could also just weigh in and say, I think there are opportunities at the local level for us to grow existing programs and maybe even think about using some of our own resources. But we know how many cars Skipper is taking off the road as an example of a shared transportation system, a rideshare system. We also know that, things like bike lanes trigger people who don't always like them. How are we going to think about meeting our transportation goals if we can't provide alternative means of getting around our communities that enable less single occupancy vehicles? And I think those are areas that we could stake out locally to work on together. But I think the biggest thing, transportation and buildings are our biggest greenhouse gas contributors. So we need to come up with strategies for that. But we need the community engagement piece. We need to build a local climate core who is interested in enhancing, supporting, advocating, and recognizing that these policy changes mean behavioral changes as well. And support for that is going to be really critical.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments from councilors? Arena, if you could bring your screen down so I can see everyone. Councilor Rand, thank you.
Thank you. I love the long-term thinking that you just expressed so clearly, Mayor Driscoll. It is about behavior change, even and building that support from the, grassroots support for this kind of shift. And then I also love thinking about, because I represent Ward 2, which is the downtown of Beverly, and has a lot of transit-oriented development happening. So I also kind of like to think about the immediate, excuse me, the immediate actions that are required, where we're facing kind of, in our city, we're facing a couple of, or one major potential rezoning project that would allow housing where there is none. So I'm curious about the immediacy of the need for policy that guides new development to more towards the type of structure that the new police station is, right? So how are we going to guide development immediately so that they're not adding to the greenhouse gas problem, so that they're right away part of the solution? Because a decade goes pretty fast. So I'm wondering, Arena and Mayor Driscoll, what your thoughts are about that sort of pressing need for change too.
Yeah, so for new development, you kind of hit the nail on the head so for the Bass River District, I might ask Darlene to jump in. We are now, 13, 14 months away from a net zero building code that we will be able to adopt, and we will be turning to our councils to make that happen. In the interim, as new proposals come online, especially some of the bigger ones, I know that there have been just discussions with the developer to say, you got to do better than this, and kind of looking backwards to better understand the decisions that existing developments, newer ones that have been built in the last, let's say, 5 years or 10 years, have chosen to heat and cool and ventilate the buildings the way that they have. What were the is it sufficient that they made certain choices to, let's say, use gas to heat the common areas because the hallways have to be ventilated at a higher rate, for example? So trying to just better understand what their limitations and restrictions are so we can kind of anticipate them.
Yeah, Counselor, I think you raised a really good point too. I think these, and it started with Counselor Riccardi saying, I'm going to file a green construction ordinance, and we've got a stakeholder group working on it. I do think you need to be thoughtful. We need housing, we need affordable housing, and we certainly want housing construction that's going to follow greener practices. How do we do that? What are the impacts, and how do we do it smartly? I think is what we're trying to work toward with respect to a green construction ordinance. And that means you've got to put people around the table, and it takes a little time. But my hope is that, we can get there ahead of the state in terms of putting together a plan that will enable us to be smarter as we're growing.
And I was just going to jump in because Arena opened the door for the Bass River Overlay District. And I think she's correct in just stating how we've handled it in the past. And a lot of times each of our developers or projects that come in are better than the last, and making changes on their own because of the cost savings, both for them and their tenants of more sustainable energy systems. But it's certainly not enough. And it's part of the reason why we felt we needed to take time to kind of hash out a lot of the details around the Bass River. Not particularly. I'm now very intrigued by a green construction ordinance and what Salem's doing with that, and getting some ideas about it, because there are limitations on what we can put in a zoning ordinance that would be regulated by the building code. So balancing that and thinking about what we can require. And I know you've heard this from us before, appreciate what Mayor Driscoll was saying about kind of weighing all of the things that we want to get out of a project, and also ending up with feasible development opportunities that can actually happen, and trying to figure out how we get to that point where our expectations are aligned with what can actually happen on the ground physically. So and as you know, we're we're starting this process, and it's one of the things that's going to feed into this, or we're continuing this long running process, I guess I should say, for the Bass River. And it's one of the things that's going to feed into it in terms of what we can require and ask of our potential development opportunities.
If I could just have one follow-up comment, President Madore. I love the, thank you. I love the idea of the strength of these two neighboring communities tackling that together, because then your leverage is doubled. I think, you know, as a region now, we're raising the bar on our expectations for development, or you know, just and our communities in general. So I love that, the strength of us working together. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilor Terrell and then Councilor Flaherty.
Thank you, Madam President. So I see there's one dilemma, I guess, for us that we have to take into mind as we think about this and the direction we go. We have housing issues in both communities and in many communities in general. We also have building code, what the building code finds acceptable. In many cases, what the code finds acceptable is not optimal for efficiency and for resilience. So I think in developing policies based on this, we're going to have to look for ways to incentivize with builders that they use more resilient techniques, that they use electric heat pumps, that they use better insulation than the building code would otherwise require them to do. And I'm not sure what the best path for us will be to incentivize that. And also, at the same time, yes, most of these technologies that you can use to make a greener structure it's more efficient in the long haul, but you know, no matter how you feel about development, most developers are not really looking to the long haul for their construction. They're looking to build it, sell it, and move on to the next projects. So, you know, we really, in planning this, I think that's an important thing for us to keep in mind. We're going to have to figure out ways to effectively incentivize this. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I recognize Councilor Flaherty, I just want to let the record reflect that Councilor Flynn just joined us. Councilor Flaherty.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I applaud everybody's effort, the work that we're doing together. I think it's important to do that, and regionalizing. Sometimes you do together. Sometimes it makes a big difference instead of one city doing it. I forget who mentioned it, but we can have many policies doing this great work, but funding is obviously going to be the difference in what we can do 10 years from now, 15 years from now. And I know Irina was talking about the idea of federal funding. It always scares me we rely on federal funding for these projects, but you obviously need to start somewhere. But the idea of doing this is important, but the funding is going to be a key piece, obviously, where we're going. The question I had, I kind of want to talk about electric charging stations. I'm not too sure where we are in Beverly. I know we have a few of them, but where are we as a city? And actually, ask Mayor Driscoll where Salem is for that, because it's good to talk about having at homeowners, but are we doing that? You know, having them at schools, having them at city-owned parking lots. Just kind of update everybody on that, if you don't mind.
Yes, gladly. So we do have 15 level 2 charging stations around the city. So that's about 20, I think it's 23 parking spaces that can all charge up at the same time. We did award an RFP to a company to install and manage fast charging stations. Those are the ones that can get you fully powered up in 40 minutes or so at one of our downtown parking lots, but we're waiting on a state grant to see if that's going to be feasible. We've been kind of moving opportunistically and strategically for these charging stations using utility and state grant funds as they are available. We also have 3 on the way for the new police station, as I mentioned, and you can find them all online on our website. They're all mapped out on an app, so anyone who owns an electric vehicle can kind of search for and find out their availability and the costs.
Yeah, I'll just weigh in really quickly. We have approximately 20, so slightly about the same number here in Salem. Same thing. You have an app, you can weigh in. The piece we're missing, Tim, Councilor Flaherty, is sort of a strong partnership with either a private partner to install these, and then a network as to where they would be. Eventually you're going to want these on regular old streets, right? Folks who have e-vehicles need a place to charge. Right now they're tied to, hey, if we're doing a new municipal building, we just did Bertram Field over. You're going to find a bunch of new e-vehicle charging stations there, but it was tied to a utility project and taking advantage of those incentives. We don't really have an overview of where should they be everywhere in the city and start lining up the infrastructure to make sure that happens. And I think we really do need to partner either with the private sector who does these or a state program to identify. And we've never had to do this before. We didn't all sit down and decide where gas stations are going to be, right? It was sort of a market-driven process, and gas stations are where they are. I think this is going to be different. We're going to need to really play a role in putting together the network if we want e-vehicles to be part of a future, and we certainly do. We know we need them. So more to come on that front. We're hoping to be able to think about a network-based system, and I think the whole state needs to think that way as well.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
If I could add on to that point.
Irina, go ahead.
Yeah, so Mayor Driscoll, you made a really good point there about thinking of a network. We know that beyond the charging stations we mentioned, there's a lot more. Like at the Cumming Center, they just installed 30, for example, so that we know that they're dispersed around the city, but the concept of the state funding and the state planning for the region, we know that I think the closest fast charging station might be in Danvers or something, or by the North Shore Mall, and those are places that people can stop and go shopping, go for a drink. We'd love to see some of those in our downtown, but also places along the highway where there are longer trips and that people have planned. And it's yeah, so that's one need and one thing that we're advocating for. We hope that the next round of funding from the state is going to be a lot larger than accommodating the 30 or so charging stations that's going to award.
Thank you. Councillor Houseman.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, just to follow up on that conversation, just a small discrete question. When we're trying to build out these the charging station networks, are Salem and Beverly through the resilience plan going to be acting jointly to do that, to coordinate the network, or are we for the time being sort of on our own as separate municipalities?
I mean, I'll speak for Salem. If the opportunity presented itself for a joint community network, I think we'd all embrace it. Right now, there isn't a partner to work with. I mean, the state provides grant funding, but it's not as though we're partnered up with the, the shell of EV stations about where do they want to put them? How much are they going to cost? Is there a subsidy component? Are we just using public space? And I think there's an opportunity if there was an opportunity for a partnership like that, we'd certainly be open to it. I think Mayor Cahill and the staff in Beverly would be as well.
I hope so. It seems to me that, I mean, the whole strength of this resiliency together is to leverage our mutual strengths and work together. So I would certainly like to see that happen as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments from councilors? Councilor Copeland.
All right, let me unmute there, and thank you, President Madore. And I think that Irina Keefe has been working on this. I know in Beverly, it goes along the lines of what Mayor Driscoll was saying, thinking as a network. I know for me, one of the frustrating things when it comes to sustainability is kind of each department on their own. Say construction, then you have trash, you have energy, you have green spaces. So it'd be nice to see everybody come under one umbrella for sustainability. And that way we can form that coherent game plan as we move forward. I speak with different organizations that want to get involved, but they're all taking care of one piece, instead of all of us working together collectively towards sustainability efforts, which I think we're trying to do now. And I think Irina has been doing that a little bit more for Beverly, to bring everything under one umbrella instead of just dealing with recycling or just dealing with construction or just dealing with, clean energy and so forth. So I just wanted to see, as far as not just in Beverly, us being able to do that, but also in Salem, but across the North Shore eventually, being able to come up with some sort of coherent sustainability practice or understanding. Is that something that we're thinking towards?
mean, Councilor Copeland, I think that we took this Resilient Together action plan in Salem, and as part of the fiscal year 2022 budget approved by the council, we formed a sustainability and resiliency division. It was exactly what you mentioned. It was a little bit of engineering, a little bit of planning, a little bit of recycling, a little bit of every group. And when it's everybody's job, it's nobody's job. And so we really wanted to make sure that we had a division focused on this. It doesn't mean that you're not working cross collaboratively. I mean, everything we do in teams is always, you've got folks outside of a department that are collaborating. But we have this amazing action plan. It has a blueprint, right? It's identified tasks. Who's going to be responsible for it? And, I'm a big believer. I think our council is what gets budgeted gets done. So, we're hiring people. Jenna Ide, who was on earlier, is leading it up. We've got an energy manager, a couple of community outreach individuals, and someone who can also do some admin and work with our stakeholders in our community. And so we're hopeful that that's going to position us as well to go after grants. There's going to be an infrastructure bill. There's going to be dollars coming down the pipeline, and everyone is so busy. The opportunity to have staff that we can have dedicated to helping with grants, carrying out this agenda has been helpful. And I know, obviously can't speak for Beverly, but I know Mayor Cahill also, wants this work to get done. We didn't spend all this time. And I really do want to give him his due. He started this process. We latched on, we got some state funding, and the two communities then tackled it together, but he was really the one taking the lead. And, I think there's opportunities for us to continue to take the lead, and we hope to. This is a part of it. We don't often get together as counselors in cities. The scheduling was tough, but I hope that this becomes, something that we do in other areas as well. There's housing policies, there's transportation policies. There's so many things that branch off of climate change that if we were looking at them jointly, not our communities are different, right? So there are going to be times when what might work for one may not work for both, but there's lots of things that we could collectively come together on. And, we're going to have the people and the resources, and I know Beverly does as well.
That's perfect, and thank you. And like you said, if it's everyone's job, it's no one's job. So it's good to see that. It's good to see the focus on. Let's get it budgeted for so that we can make it someone's job and then move forward with these things, and then as a collective. So I'm looking forward to that, and hopefully we'll all get to meet each other in person. That'll be wonderful as well. And always enjoy working with our sister community in Salem. So thank you.
Next time, let's hope it's over cocktails, okay?
Yeah, Councilor Copeland, if you want to advocate for us to hire 5 more staffers and create our own sustainability department like Salem has, I wouldn't be opposed to it. I wanted to just add too that there are a lot of regional networks that we participate in as staff. So MAPC is our regional planning authority, and that's composed of 40 some municipalities. They have learning groups that meet monthly and kind of share best practices, share resources, problems, issues that come up. So I participate on an aggregation learning group through MAPC, as well as an electric vehicle learning group through MAPC. Darlene, I believe, sits on North Shore TMA and is a regular attendee there. I'm sure planning has other regional groups that make sure that continuous contact is being maintained as we try to move forward regional projects.
Thank you, Councilor McCarthy.
Thank you, President Medor. I just want to first take the time to recognize everybody on this call. I think, it's historic, and it's, I've known Councilor Flaherty for a long time, and we're both, I think, in our 14th year on our respective councils, and this is the first time we've ever been in any kind of joint meeting between City and Beverly and Salem are so tied together that I think it's great that we're actually doing this, and I think that it speaks volumes to the commitment of the people on this call to their communities, and to really realize that we can't, this is something we all can't do by ourselves. And we, to form these partnerships and to come together to be able to do this, I think it's historic, and it's great, and it really speaks to the commitment of both our cities and the people who, both administrations and both councils, because we're the people that are making the hard choices. And I was sitting here, and I mean, people who know me, I live in Salem, but I grew up in Beverly. My office is in Beverly. I've driven by the new police station probably a bazillion times in the last couple of years it's been being constructed. I mean, when I was a kid, it was, you know, the old police station in downtown Beverly was, you know, they've been talking about replacing that for years. And the fact that you guys just got on here and told me something that I didn't know, that it is 100% resilient with heat pumps. And those are the tough decisions, because those are the decisions we as a councils have to make, because everyone's touched on it. It all comes down to funding. And you guys in Beverly made the commitment to fund a project that short term is going to cost you more money, but in long term, it's going to pay itself off. And it's our job as councilors is we have to sell that to the public. We have to make the public understand that the decisions that we're making now are going to be decisions that are going to affect us, you know, 15, 20, 30 years down the road. And sometimes those are tough decisions. And right now we're in a period in history that, you know, the elected bodies need to make tough decisions. And we have to be able to make our constituents, you know, understand that, you know, sometimes we are going to expend more money on a project, but we're going to spend more money on a project to get it right. Because in the long term, it's going to be a long-term benefit to the city. And so I think as we move forward, you know, together, those are the things we have to, you know, we have to be united around, is we're going to make decisions that short-term may cost us a few extra bucks, but that's why they call them short-term, long-term. But long-term, it's going to be more beneficial. And I think the starting of this relationship, I think, is going to be more beneficial as we move down the road. The more that we can do together, I think the better off both communities will be. And so I want to thank everybody for their participation, because you know, I have the utmost respect for anybody who sits in one of these positions, because you can never explain how hard it is to someone until you actually sat in the seat. So I want to give you all credit for what you do, and I'm really looking forward to the next couple of years moving some of these action plans forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor McCarthy has inspired me to bring up something that Salem and Beverly have already done together. So Councilor mentioned that we can't do this alone. And another big issue that we are facing is housing. And I know that Beverly, Salem, and Peabody have a joint memorandum of understanding. And I think that's such a great model to think about applying to resiliency. And that regional MOU has actually seen many successes. We've had several housing units produced as a result. So I wonder if this is another opportunity for us to commit to that regional partnership, agreeing to certain goals and benchmarks that we will draw from this plan and achieve together. I think that that's something that it's worth exploring between the councils and the cities. Councilor DeBow.
Thank you, Madam President. This is a very good meeting. I'm enjoying seeing some of my friends from Beverly here at this meeting. And yes, we need to do this more often. Just a couple of observations, a couple of points. I was one of the first houses, my wife and I, to put solar panels up on our roof of our house. And we, about 12 years ago, we added electric mini split heat pump. And virtually, I think we've had 3 electric bills in the last 12 years. It's great having free electricity in our house. I encourage everybody to do it. We as city councilors can lead the charge and promote other people in our cities to do the same. It's slowly catching on right now. One thing that we haven't really talked about is on the natural gas issues. I've been part of the Eastern Mass Gas Leaks Allies, attending meetings in Brookline, Boston, Arlington, all over the place for many years. And as a result of a lot of the pressure that group has put on, it's a lot of elected officials, town managers, and just people from the public as well. The gas companies in the entire region have been fixing a lot of the leaking pipes throughout our cities, digging up the streets, but it's a necessary evil. So that's coming. But at some point, we're going to be looking to wean off of gas totally. And I welcome the green building ordinance. It's about 2 decades or longer overdue. We should have had something many, many years ago. So I encourage Beverly to take a look at what Salem's created. But Salem hasn't passed it yet. We need to get to work on that and get it passed so that new construction projects, larger projects and smaller ones will be more resilient. across the board. On the natural gas front, we haven't really talked about the human health impacts at all. I'm wondering if the resiliency group has talked about that at all, whereas most of our natural gas, if not all of it, is coming from Pennsylvania, and it's being generated by the fracking process. And with that process, a lot of it's no longer natural. It's unnatural gas with a lot of benzene and toluene and other chemicals added to that at that end of the pipe. And then it comes here to Beverly and to Salem. And then when you turn on the gas, we should almost have the fan turned on and the window opened up. How much time was spent into the human health impacts as part of the study, can I ask?
As for human health impacts of natural gas leaks, not a lot, to be honest. So I know that local groups like HEAT have been doing a lot of advocacy to address gas leaks. What we were talking about was mostly revolving around kind of solutions. How can we expedite the transition and the replacement of, for the most part, cast iron pipe with PVC? Cast iron is really responsible for the gas leaks. It's coming out of the old kind of joints of the older pipe. So I know we have some incentives in Beverly. The National Grid is charged for cutting into a road. And so one incentive that we have is just allowing them to do it for free while we're doing our other utility work and road rehab work. So trying to understand really what the levers for city intervention are. And that's been my kind of involvement on the approach to natural gas. But you're right. I mean, we need to wean ourselves off of it. And, that's why we're sort of pushing so hard to try to electrify and just get the fossil fuel out of our new developments at a minimum. We don't want to see any new gas connections. They're and areas that currently rely on like delivered fuels that have been advocating for new gas connections. Centerville and Beverly is an example of one of those. The economics have finally kind of turned in the past couple of years so that moving from propane or oil to heat directly to electric heat pumps makes more sense than trying to get a new gas line installed.
Thank you. Councilor DeVoe, you had a follow-up, or is your hand?
No, I'm all set. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. If we can all agree on ending before 8 to not make it such a long night, that would be great. But if there are any final questions or comments, go ahead and raise your hand, Councilor Riccardi.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd also like to just take a moment to say thank you for the great presentation this evening. This being my first term in office, I feel like there have been a lot of firsts that have happened or monumental meetings, and it's great that these cities have been able to get together. I'll share that when I first moved to the North Shore, I was actually a Beverly resident for a year, and then I did go over the bridge. So my heart is also there as well. I also want to note that I love hearing all of the support this evening for a green building ordinance. I'm really excited to continue that support and continue that momentum that we have this evening into action in the council and getting green building ordinance passed. I know that Jenna Ide and her team, the new sustainability department that we have in Salem, have been working very hard on updating the green building ordinance that has been submitted, and it was really big, kind of pie in the sky. This would be excellent to have and make it a little more realistic in what can we get done piecewise. So I believe it's being separated into, there's going to be a municipal building aspect first for the green building ordinance and then going on to residential. So again, I'm just super excited to see the support for that and to see it going forward and moving on. I also want to just kind of go back to comments that were mentioned earlier this evening about the intersectionality of, resiliency and sustainability and all these big picture items that we're talking about. Like solar panels are great and heat pumps are great, but that's not realistic for a large portion of our population. So to continue this communication and to continue the education of what is realistic, tiny things that can be done by the larger population, really those add up and they make a difference. And to continue that messaging is super important. and then making sure that, we can get into the hands of everyone those tools that they need and that can be used to help move our goals forward. But I'm super excited about this plan, and the resident toolkit is awesome. I haven't seen that yet. I just saw that tonight. So kudos on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any final questions or comments? Seeing none, before I recognize Councilor Riccardi, I again want to thank my fellow councilors and city clerks and the staff from both cities for putting this together. I know it's been a lot of work, taking a lot of time and resources and effort, but the result is something to be proud of for both of our communities. I look forward to implementing some of these recommendations so that all that time has not gone to waste. And I'm excited that we have such positive comments from tonight, that we are both very eager to work together. I know only good things will come out of regional partnerships, so I'm very excited to see how we can think about how to actually work together. And with that, Councilor Riccardi.
Thank you, Madam President. I move for the presentation to receive it and placed on file.
Councilor Riccardi moves that the presentation be received and filed. And Madam City Clerk, you're going to take a roll.
Councilor Torrio,
Yes.
Councilor Sargent. Sorry. Councilor Riccardi,
Yes.
Councilor Krasnowski,
Yes.
Costello,
Yes.
Councilor McCarthy,
Yes.
Councilor Flynn,
Yes.
Councilor Dominguez,
Yes.
Councilor Dibble,
Yes.
and Councilor Madore.
Councilor Riccardi's motion to place the presentation and to receive the presentation will be placed on file. We have 8 councilors voting, 3 absent, matter carries.
9-2.
Oh, Councilor Flynn, sorry. 9 councilors voting, 2 absent, the matter carries. Councilor Rand.
And I'll echo your comments on this being something proud for our communities. And likewise, thank you very much to the clerk's office in Salem and our clerk's office for always being there to support us. And as President Guanti would say, making us look good. We know that you're the ones doing the work. So not afraid to say that out loud every now and then. This has been fantastic, and it's got my mind inspired of other ways that we can connect and work together going forward. And I would likewise accept a motion to receive and place on file this presentation.
Moved.
Second.
And a roll call, please.
Haynes,
Yes.
Copeland,
Yes.
Feldman,
Yes.
Nardi,
Yes.
Flowers,
Yes.
Rand,
Yes.
Rotundo,
Wow.
Guanci, and House.
House. Yes.
Okay, carries from 7-2.
Thank you. And we do have to adjourn on for both bodies. So we're going to take a roll call for both. And I'm going to call on Councilor McCarthy. Put you on the spot.
Put me on the spot. I move that we adjourn.
Councilor McCarthy moves for adjournment. Madam C. Clerk, you ready? Please call the roll.
Councilor Torrio,
Yes.
Councilor Riccardi,
Yes.
Councilor Krasnowski,
Yes.
Costello,
Yes.
Councilor McCarthy,
Yes.
Councilor Flynn,
Yes.
Councilor Dominguez,
Yes.
Councilor Dibble,
Yes.
and Councilor Madore.
Yes. Hi. And we are adjourned.
And do we also need to adjourn? Okay, I would accept a motion to adjourn this special joint meeting of the Beverly City Council.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
And a
Second.
roll call, please.
Kane,
Yes.
Copeland,
Yes.
Feldman,
Yes.
Flaherty,
Yes.
Flowers,
Yes.
Hoffman,
Yes.
Nintendo, Guanci, and Rand.
Yes. So our meeting is now adjourned. I think that's it.
Everybody.
Thank you for
Everybody.
hosting, Salem.
Nice seeing you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.